My name is Diana Bully, and I'm an independent facilitator that's been invited by the City of Toronto to moderate the meeting, and I'm very pleased to be here with you this evening. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that this site is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many other diverse First Nations, including Inuit and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. So before we get into our presentation this evening, I would like to invite Deputy Mayor Thompson to provide some opening remarks. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Diana, and good evening, everyone. I'd like to also welcome Mayor Tory to this meeting. Members of the community, I'm delighted to be with you this evening as we discuss an exciting project for Glamorgan. And the Glamorgan project is part of a broad citywide solution. The project leverages existing city-owned lands and employs the latest building technology to create permanent, energy-efficient, supportive housing in our community. The facility goes beyond safe and
Deputy Mayor, we seem to be having connection issues.
Can you hear me? This is nuts.
No, I'm sorry. We're just having some connection issues. If you could just repeat the last couple of sentences.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I wonder if perhaps yes.
Can you hear me now? So
yes.
I was saying that the facility goes beyond, safe and comfortable housing to incorporate a wraparound service for residents. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. And with its community kitchen, common areas, and extensive new greenery, it provides an opportunity to integrate the facility and its residents into the life of the surrounding community. Access to housing is a growing concern across the city. Creating solutions is a top priority. Projects like this one enables us to tackle homelessness in a faster and a more comprehensive way than ever before. It provides a dignified, holistic response that moves people out of the shelter system and off the street into long-term community-based residence. Its modular approach streamlines the development process and enables an accelerated timeline that responds to. I encourage everyone to work together to. Can you hear me okay still?
No, you're cutting in and out. I wonder if maybe we could turn off your video to improve the bandwidth.
Okay, let me do that.
Okay.
Okay, is that any better?
It is.
Okay. Great, thank you. Its modular approach streamlines the development process and enables an accelerated timeline and response to the pressing immediate needs for housing. I encourage everyone to work together to make it a success. Community engagement will go a long way towards integrating the new homes into our community and in welcoming new neighbors who will be housed by this project. Members of the community, I'm committed to working with the entire community to address your concerns and to help make this project a success. I will remain actively involved to ensure that the best interests of our community are represented throughout the consultation process. You will get more information about the structure and the details about the design and so on. It's an opportunity for you to provide your input with respect to how this project will actually be welcome into our community. The need for supportive, affordable housing is immediate and real. First photo, please. Members of the community, this is the intersection of Dundalk and Ellesmere. I'd like to introduce you to Dominica. I met Dominica just this past Saturday. This is where she is living, regrettably. These are her possessions that are in a shopping cart. Dominica is a homeless woman living in our community. When I spoke to her on Saturday, I tried to learn a little bit about her. It took her a while to warm up to me, to tell me a little bit about her story. She has been in our shelter system. She has been into the Fred Victor facility. She has also most recently been at the Delta 401. She has indicated to me that she needs housing. I explored the situation with her to ask her what she needed. She initially was a little bit guarded about responding to me. She then indicated to me that she needed a place that was safe, a place that offered her dignity, a place that was warm, a place that had a shower, a place that has a small kitchen, a place where there will be people to help her. I was able to tell her that Mayor Tory and City Council are working on just such a location, which was probably less than 200 meters away from where we were standing on Saturday. She indicated that she would love an opportunity to live in a place that would provide her with dignity. I talked to her a little further and asked her a little bit about herself. She told me that she worked for many, many years, but unfortunately her circumstances does not allow her to take care of herself in her advanced years. She indicated that she needed help from the city and needed help from the community. I'm happy to say that many residents in the community are taking food to her. I'm also happy to tell you that we have asked our outreach workers to work with her. They have met with her on a number of occasions. She has, however, indicated that she is not willing to move. She does not want to live in a shelter. She wants a more permanent housing solution, which is what we're here to discuss this evening. Next photo, please. So I met her on Saturday, and this was on Sunday. During my meeting with her on Saturday, she indicated that she loved rice, she loved meat, and she wanted to have a nice meal. We went out and got her a nice meal and had a chance to talk with her more about what her needs were. I will say to everyone, she was a very competent, very intelligent person who is in need of the community's support. The support that we're about to talk about this evening, Dominica and many others like her need our help, need the community's involvement, need us to step up to help the community, needs to really take Dominica's interests and her concern seriously. And I know that's what we'll be doing this evening. Neighborhoods across the city are being asked to contribute to the solution to provide housing for those who are homeless. As one of them, Scarborough Centre has an important role to play in tackling one of our most pressing urban issues and help the city fill one of its greatest social needs, housing. I present to you, Dominica, members of the community. We need to present her with housing, and that's the conversation that we want to have with you this evening. I'll turn it back to you, Diana. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we were able to hear you towards the all towards the end. So thank you very much for sharing your story, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. I'll now turn over to Mayor John Tory, who's going to provide some additional opening remarks. Mayor Tory.
Diana, thank you. And you know, one of the reasons why Michael Thompson is a deputy mayor, he's a councillor too, but he's also been named by me as deputy mayor, is because he would illustrate what we're here to talk about in the way that he did. And I can tell you from the beginning of this site on Glamorgan even being under consideration, he has found ways in which we can make sure that this project that we're here to discuss with you tonight can be as good as it can possibly be in terms of being a good addition to this neighborhood, a good solution to the problem he talked about. But what he also did is something that I try to do, because I've been to many of these meetings, as Michael indicated, right across the city. I don't think I missed one, because I want to talk first and foremost about the fact that the people we're helping here are human beings. They're our fellow Torontonians who have fallen into a time of struggle, or a time of bad luck, or a time of health issue. And you know, when you look at why they ended up experiencing homelessness, it's sometimes the breakup of their family, sometimes the loss of a job, sometimes it's a mental health issue. There's a whole host of things that can happen, but they're human beings. Dominica is somebody's mother, maybe. She's certainly somebody's daughter. She's maybe somebody's sister. She's certainly got some friends, or had some friends, but she's obviously, you know, fallen into a very challenging set of circumstances. And to be candid with you, in my first 3 or 4 years as mayor, went along with what had been done in previous years and what was always urged upon me, which was to just keep expanding the shelter system. But you know what? It doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? For exactly the reason that Deputy Mayor Thompson said, which is that a shelter system, yes, provides a roof, and it provides and that's better than sleeping on the street or in an encampment, but it doesn't provide a home. And it doesn't provide the supports that oftentimes people need in order to get back on their own feet, which is what they want. I mean, most people really, really, really want to be back on their own feet and, you know, working and looking after themselves and just being part of the community. And so this development, and all the other ones that I've been speaking to across the city, are part of a bigger program we have to move away from the old way, which is to sort of warehouse people, to be frank, in shelters. We didn't look at it that way, but that's in effect what you ended up doing. And we're going to put people into a home of exactly the kind that Deputy Mayor Thompson described. It has a kitchen and a bathroom, and it's a home. It's an apartment in which people pay rent, and you'll be told all about that tonight. And just as importantly, they have what Deputy Mayor Thompson correctly described as the wraparound supports to help them deal with their issues, whether their issue is finding more permanent housing for themselves, or a job, or dealing with some other kinds of issues with mental health or anything like that. And so I've been out and seen the site, by the way, and I've walked around and looked at it some time ago when it was in the early stages. I am most impressed with how Deputy Mayor Thompson, as he does on most things, has taken the initiative to look at ways already before this thing is even into this consultation, make it better. And he's done that. And this is what he does all the time. And he's very much representing your interests and the interests of the neighborhood, because in the end, what we want to have happen here is for you to have some new neighbors, and for them to have some people who embrace them and welcome them. And for that's an important consideration in them getting back on their feet as well, that they feel welcome and embraced, and that they feel they're in a neighborhood and part of that neighborhood. So I'm looking forward to the meeting tonight. I thank you so much for coming out. I will answer whatever questions come my way, but most of them are going to be, I think, to the city staff and the designers and other people who are involved in this. And we're very attentive to the things that you think can be done to make this work, because we want this to be a success. We want this to be part of a new model that is actually much more cost effective too, to believe it or not. Supportive housing, even with the individual apartments per person, and even with the supports that we provide, we the governments together, is actually less expensive. Not that it's about money, but less expensive than shelters, and more effective. So I think that we're here to do have that discussion tonight, and I will turn it back to Diana and look forward to listening to your comments and questions as we go through. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, as well, for your opening remarks. So let's move into the next part of our session here. And before we move into the presentation, I would just like to highlight the guidelines for respectful dialogue that we're wanting everyone to follow this evening. We are here tonight to hear from everyone who wants to share their perspective in a safe and respectful way. These community meetings are meant to be safe spaces where people can both listen and share their thoughts and ideas about the project. And for that reason, discrimination or abusive language of any kind will not be tolerated. And I'm sure it won't go down that road, but if it does, it will result in a warning followed by a removal from the event. But I'm confident we can come together and have a fruitful discussion about the project and the program and what this means for your neighborhood. So let's take a look at our agenda this evening. We have rounded the corner on welcoming and introductions, and we're about to hear from the city around collective action on homelessness, some details about the housing at 7 Glamorgan Avenue, the process and the timeline, what is involved with building modular housing and what you could expect to see on this site if the building is built, and then some ideas you may have for how to support the success of this building. What kinds of things would you like to see, and what kinds of things would you like the city to consider as it proceeds with this planning? So we have a full agenda, and we'll get right down to it right away. So next I would like to introduce Abby Bond. She's the Executive Director of the City of Toronto's Housing Secretariat, and she's going to present some information for you, and then we'll have a quick discussion. If you'd like to hold your questions at the end, we'll show you how to, well, we just passed that, but you can raise your hand and I'll keep a speaking order. And you can just use the raise your hand function on the bottom of your screen here, if you're on a phone or if you're on a smartphone or tablet. All right. Thanks, Mercedes. Let's go ahead to Abby.
Okay, thanks, Diana, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here at this important session. So based on what we've heard about the situation that some people find themselves in our city, I want to talk to you a little bit about what it takes to address that problem of homelessness and how we can work together to do that. So homelessness is a really difficult and growing urban issue in our city and many others across Canada, and it really takes a community to address this issue. So we're talking about bringing all levels of government together with the right kind of investment, housing and nonprofit operators, neighbours like you, and other community groups who have an interest in supporting homeless residents. So everyone together will have an impact, and we can see homelessness improve. Next slide, please. So unfortunately, right now in Toronto, on most nights, there are just under 8,000 people experiencing homelessness. And really, I'll talk a little bit about the supports necessary, but people really want a home with supports, a place that's warm and safe, that they can be safe and secure, and to get the help that they need and the medical services that they need. Next slide, please. So as we've touched on already briefly, there are many different ways that people find their way into homelessness, unfortunately. It can be a combination of a job loss or a lack of income, just not being able to find affordable housing and keep it. There could be mental health issues or substance use issues, and often a breakdown with family or friends. So there really are many ways that people experience homelessness and find their way there. And it's really up to us to find the one solution out of homelessness, which is about the provision of housing and supportive housing. Next slide, please. So in our housing TO plan, this is our 10-year plan to help many people get access to affordable housing. It's not just the homeless who are in need of housing. There are many people who are struggling to find and keep affordable housing. And our housing plan, our 10-year plan, does that. It provides many different options, policies, programs, and services, but it also recognizes the importance of providing a dignified home and supporting people in their well-being through supportive housing. Next slide, please. So we're here tonight to talk to you about a proposal for 7 Glamorgan Avenue. So we're proposing to build modular housing at this location, modular supportive housing, for approximately 57 people. So these, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the homes in the next slides. Next slide, please. So these homes will be rental homes. They'll be safe, warm, permanent rental homes. We're going to be looking to support people like women, Indigenous residents, seniors, people with disabilities, and other people who've experienced or are experiencing homelessness. Each of the rental apartments are studio apartments, so they each have their own bathroom and kitchen and a front door that you can close so they're secure. And there are also some building amenities like shared laundry, commercial kitchen, a dining area, and communal area and programming space on site to help residents make their home here and make it a success. Next slide, please. So we often get the question, and people are curious about, what is supportive housing? So in addition to that permanent rental home that we've provided that's affordable for people, there are also supports on site delivered by the staff from the nonprofit housing provider that we will choose. And again, I'll talk more about that. There are many different kinds of supports that they provide. It could be medical care provided on site. It could be access to mental health or substance use services. It could be life skills training. It could be helping people reconnect with family and friends. There's a laundry on site, so it might be helping people to do their laundry, helping people to with daily living activities like where to find an optician, or where to find a dentist, or where to get food from. So there's many different things that people need support with in order to be healthy and happy in their home, and the staff on site are there to really tailor the services for the individuals in order that they can make this successfully their home. Next slide, please. So supportive housing works because we bring experienced nonprofit housing operators on board who have both professional building management experience and also that experience of providing those customized supports that I was just talking about. All the residents that will move in, they've made their choice. It's their choice to live here, so they're choosing to live here and make this their home. They'll be paying rent like other renters in the community, and through that we'll be able to access supports. So the operator takes care of the building, they take care of the residents, and also the communication between the building, the residents, and the community at large. Next slide, please. So the success of this building will in large part rely on us choosing a quality, professional, experienced nonprofit housing provider. So we'll be going through a competitive process to pick the best operator for this building. So we want to see that they have experience at working with the local councillor and the local community on other buildings, that they do have other buildings that they've been managing successfully, supportive housing very similar to this, and that through those other buildings they can demonstrate a really strong track record in tenant engagement and communications, and also really critically do have that experience working with a wide variety of tenants, including marginalized and vulnerable populations. Next slide, please.
Thank you.
So sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay, I didn't hear that, Diana.
Just carry on. Sorry, Abby.
Okay, no problem. Sorry, I thought I had some audio issues there. My apologies. Okay, so I want to just talk a little bit about how community safety is really our shared priority. Based on our experience with supportive housing all across the city, so we have almost 11,000 units already, or 11,000 homes, I should say, already in the city. We know that supportive housing can work really successfully in many different communities. So we're not anticipating any increased community safety issues in this neighborhood as a result of the new housing that we're proposing. And again, that choice of nonprofit operator is critical because they will be responsible for continuing the dialogue with you, the community, and also addressing any community concerns once the residents have moved in. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a little bit about the planning, review, and approval process. So this proposal does require, oh, Carrie, are you going to do this slide?
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't.
Okay.
Let me pass it on to you. My apologies.
I'm no problem. I'm doing it unless I have audio issues. So good evening, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here this evening. We wanted just to give you a little bit of information about the planning, review, and approval process. In terms of the proposal at Glamorgan, it does require relief from the zoning bylaw, and it also requires site plan approval. Now, in terms of the zoning bylaw, it does not require relief for the type of use permitted. In other words, this building is considered to be an apartment building, and the units are dwelling units, all of which are currently permitted on the site. The relief sought is going to be with respect to the number of units, setbacks, parking, bicycle parking. So those will be the matters that are going to be considered by Planning and Housing Committee. On May 20th, Planning and Housing Committee did consider a staff report, and we recommended that Council endorse in principle a request to the Minister to make a Minister zoning bylaw, or a Minister zoning order, excuse me. And a Minister zoning order really takes the same form of a zoning bylaw, but it enables the minister to initiate the relief sought as opposed to City Council going through it. However, City Council will request the relief that is specifically sought. Council is going to be considering the staff recommendation to use the minister's zoning order at its meeting of June 8th. Next, please. Next slide, please. In terms of the timeline, many people have raised the fact that this is happening very quickly, and it is. And the reason it's happening so quickly is there is an urgent need for housing in the city, particularly supportive housing. However, the one thing that is not going to occur is that we're not going to miss any vital steps that we would normally undertake in terms of any planning and site plan approval process. So full information with respect to the site plan will be submitted. All the requisite studies will be submitted. The only thing that's happening, it's a very condensed timeline. And as you can see from this slide, committee is considered it at May 20th. Council is going to consider our recommendation to use the minister's zoning order in June 8th. And then we're coming back to council on July 14th after a subsequent community meeting, recommending what our final recommendations would be with respect to the relief that is being sought. And this is all with a mind of being able to enable the residents to move in during next March. Thanks, Diana.
Great, thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Abby, as well. So we'd now like to turn it over to the community to pause for a bit of discussion. If there are any questions or comments on what you've heard so far, I welcome you to, again, just raise your hand and I'll keep a speaking order. So if there's any questions or comments, please raise your hand and we'll endeavor to answer them. At the moment, we don't have any raised hands. So we'll just give a moment there and pause. Right. Perhaps we will continue with our presentation, and then if we see a hand raised, we can quickly connect to that.
Oh, Diana, we can actually see 3 people raising their hands. Do you want me to call their names?
Yes, that is somewhat troubling. Thank you.
So Tanisha Banton? Tanisha?
I don't know how to turn my mic on. Is it on?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
I can hear you.
For you.
I've never used this before. Okay. All right. I feel all tech savvy now. Yeah, I live in 7 Glamorgan actually, and I just found out about this 2 days ago. So I'm very much interested in what is going to be the long-term ramifications of having this structure built and how close it is to the building. I mean, it's such a small space. It's the only green space that we have. And I know that children use it in the winter to go a little tobogganing. And I really see that it has such potential to bring the community together as like a garden or of some sort. I feel like this community actually needs more of that. And I'm wondering what kind of impact that would have on the building and the community and the wellness of that.
Abby, would you like to respond to that question? Or Carrie?
Yeah, maybe I'll start. Thanks, Tanisha, for coming tonight and for your question. So in the next section, actually, we're going to show you a little, some slides on the site plan so you can see the kind of proposed position of the building. And we're happy to receive feedback about the way the site is used right now and what we need to consider in terms of being able to put this building here, but also maintain people's access to green space and other amenities. So we're really here to listen to you and find out more about the way the site is used and see whether we can accommodate what we can accommodate through the site plan approval process. I don't know, Carrie, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Thanks, Abby. I was going to say the exact same thing. We're about to show the site plan, but Tanisha, it's a great question, an important question. and one that when you start to see the site plan, and hopefully you'll be able to come to the next meeting and also any other meetings that may be held to provide your input, because we want to make sure that the building, from a planning point of view, we don't want to see a negative impact on the building. In fact, we want to ensure that there's a positive impact on the existing Glamorgan residents. So these are some of the things through the site plan and minister zoning order that we are going to look at. But perhaps you will have some more questions when we show you the site plan, which is coming up in the next part of the meeting.
Okay. Well, can you hear me? Well, I've done a
Yes,
lot
we
of
can.
research.
Yeah.
I've done some research and I've seen the rendering, and I saw the position, but it doesn't really show how close it is to the building. And I see that to be leveled, it would have to be a lot of work actually to level out the building, as the building is a little bit lower than the proposed leveling of where you want the structure, the modular housing. And I'm very concerned because people in the building, they really don't even know about this. I've asked a few people. I've only lived here for about 8 months, and I've come from a bachelor unit, and I do have a lot of negative experiences of being next to people who are living in very small units, of being outside a lot, drinking outside a lot of negative implications on myself. I've had to call the police many times for myself being stalked or followed, things of that nature. And I also understand that having supportive staff is important, but there is a self-initiative kind of self-determination and willpower that it takes for people to come out of the positions that they are in life. They have to kind of want that kind of help, and wanting housing is so crucial. But then the next step after that is, how do we get people to be able to engage with one another and not still live the same psychological life and traumatic experiences that they've had, where they have maladaptive, behaviors and thinking, and that they'll be able to, and having that access to people and children in a family-oriented building. Is that going to be a concern for parents that live here, to not have that kind of parental trust to let their children go to the grocery store when they're like 12 and 13, because they have maybe a stigma, attached to these types of situations. So I'm concerned about things like that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll just say a few things with regard to your comments and concerns. The first thing I want to just let you know is that we are having another meeting later this week with some of the TCHC tenants from the adjacent buildings. So hopefully the word will get round and we'll get to connect with more tenants so that they have more opportunity to ask questions. So that's one thing. You raise a really good point as well, that really the road to recovery and well-being really starts with housing. It's only when people are able to move inside and have, as you said, agency and choice, and demonstrate choice over their future, that we really start to see that people move in a different and healthier direction. So we're really, our focus here is to make this a success. The choice of the nonprofit and the services that they're providing, and matching those services and supports with the right tenants will make this a successful building. And I'm sure will have a big impact on those people's lives. And I'm sure, as we've seen with other buildings, that residents build connection to the broader community, and actually, like I said, they choose to make this their home and are looking for ways to contribute as well to the broader community. So we've certainly seen that in other buildings, and we'd love to continue that conversation with residents like yourselves. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Tanisha.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our next caller, and that's Michelle. Michelle, please go ahead. Michelle, can you hear us? Are you there?
Hello? Sorry, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Now we can,
Okay,
yes.
sorry about that. So hi, thank you for having me tonight. I live in Dundalk, right by where 7 Glamorgan it will be built. And my main concern with the units that are being built is that our neighborhood is already a highly densely populated area, like Tanisha was talking about. And my concern is that working with COVID-19 clients is that our neighborhood has been a hot spot, and it's evident because we have so many apartments and we are just such a large population in such a small area. And my biggest fear is just having another vulnerable population within our own vulnerable population. I understand we have a lot of great amenities nearby. We have the Dorset Hub, we have 3 grocery stores, which makes this a great area for people to live in. But I'm just concerned with the overpopulation of our neighborhood and the transmission of possible diseases like COVID-19 being transmitted. And I just want to see like how would we be able to navigate that with the new housing being built?
Thank you, Michelle. Who would like to respond to that comment?
Maybe I'll start. Thanks, Michelle. So we've had strict, COVID-19 protocols with the nonprofits in the first 2 buildings that we've opened. And certainly, the move-in process has been vastly different from what it would normally be because of the unique times that we're living through. So we take that very seriously, and it's definitely part of our scrutiny, and what we're looking for a nonprofit to demonstrate is that they've actually developed those protocols, that they've got knowledge of how to do that safely during COVID-19 period, which we all hope, I'm sure, is coming to an end soon. So we take that very seriously. As you rightly point out, this area does have good access to grocery stores and other amenities. And so it's been important for us to try and find places where people can make their home, looking for the same kinds of amenities and access that any renter would be looking for in their neighborhood. And I think the point I want to make is that because we see people struggling and see people homeless in every neighborhood across the city, it's really important for us to find places, to find sites and buildings in all neighborhoods across the city. So through this program, we have about 10 sites underway ultimately, and they're spread across the city in many different neighborhoods. So it's important for us to do that because we don't want all of our services and supports and supportive housing concentrated within one area of the city, even if that's like downtown. So thank you for your, the point that you raised or questions about density, but we feel that this is a site that could work over the long term. But Kerry, I don't know if you want to say anything about the densities on the site specifically.
Thanks, Abby. Michelle, in terms of the density, we're really only accommodating 57 additional individuals at this site. So we consider this a relatively small building in terms of the number of people that it is going to accommodate. The one further point I'd make is by providing housing for people, and they will have their own units, it does help in addressing some broader health issues such as COVID. People are then housed in their own unit and not in more crowded living accommodation. So this, as Abby said, hopefully we're coming to an end. But should it continue or there be something else in the future, providing safe, clean housing for people is a key goal of the city.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for your I'll go to Kathy. All right, Kathy, please go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Tory, this is for you. I've looked at the site plans and so forth to do my research, and this is another site that we have a problem with parking and Wheel-Trans drop-off. That's a city service, that's a door-to-door service, and planning is not providing adequately enough for that. We had problems with this at Cummer and Tobermory. We don't know And it's causing a lot of manpower to be and jiggling, and then there's bad feelings about trees and potentially losing trees when these are things that should be looked at from the very beginning to be able to be provided. How do we make sure that the minister's zoning order is going to be sufficient enough to allow for that Wheel-Trans drop-off, for staff parking without imposing on the TCHC community and properties? Because just like if you were a private landlord who owned two properties side by side, one had a driveway and one didn't, and the one that did was already rented, that new renter in the one beside him doesn't automatically get to park in that driveway, even though the same person owns it. So, Mayor, I need to make sure that these zoning orders are going to provide enough for our city services that are door to door, that we've got adequate, waste removal and parking, and provide the accessibility, because that's, me, that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm going to be at every one of these projects. So staff just going to have to get used to hearing me complain or fix it.
No, look, Kathy, I want to thank you, and I know the deputy mayor knows, of your work and of your keen interest in these things. It's very genuine, and I know that your attendance at these meetings has been perfect because you've been at every single one that I've been at, and Abby knows too. And so, look, I was unaware of these particular concerns, but I will take them up with Abby and with the deputy mayor, and we will find a way to address issues that I think are very genuine. I mean, you cannot have people who are at some point in time or another, and as you know, we're going to do the right thing and have some of these units be fully accessible. I don't know the number in this development, but they've each had some units that are fully accessible, and you and I have to have a tour in that regard to make sure that we're doing that right. But it makes no sense to have units that are fully accessible and then to have something like the transportation service that we provide as a city not fully accessible to those residents. So we will we'll get to work on that, and I owe you an answer on that, and I believe me, I'm smarter than to not answer the question as best I can within a reasonable period of time. So we'll get on it.
And Mayor, I am looking, I know that you were out and about this weekend at a vaccine clinic. I do my homework as well. And so I've contacted your staff and said, okay, if he's out and about, then he's out and about. Let's get this site visit underway. And so I am waiting to hear from your staff. We need to do that to get these projects settled as far as the accessibility, so that we know for sure what we can and can't do. Abby knows my position on a lot of this, and I want to help you get better at this for accessibility, but we have to be there. So I need to show it to you, Mayor.
The next 2 weekends, one of the next 2 weekends, I'll just go and tell me you're quite right. I was out for the first time doing the vaccine clinics, and work is work and masks are masks, and this is less of a crowd scene than some of those things were, although I did follow all the rules. But Kathy, I'll get back to do that. Thank you so much.
I've had my shot. I'm there with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate your joining the call this evening. All right, let's go to our next caller, who is Anna. All right, Anna, please go ahead.
Hello, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes? Okay,
Welcome.
so my name is Anna, and I live in the townhouses in Dundalk. I actually came here, so my family, we're immigrants, and then I grew up here, and then I grew up to be a healthcare worker. So I just have a few concerns about the new building. I just want to ask, because 7 Glamorgan, they are my neighbors, and I do care about them. I also grew up with them, some of the kids there too. And I just really am concerned because I know we've had development projects like this in Toronto before. And I was very concerned with like an example of Regent Park, where they ended up displacing the current residents that were living there, and they lost their community housing, and I would be concerned if people of 7 Glamorgan would lose their housing. I know you're building it beside it, and it's just hard to depict it. I also want to bring up another concern.
Sure.
Book written by Jane Jacobs about mixed communities. So, and I also want to expand on someone else's, they brought it up as well earlier, and I felt like that question was not answered clearly. So, mixed communities was written by Jane Jacobs, and she talked a lot about having appropriate resources and including people of different socioeconomic groups with the wealthy and I guess less wealthy as well. And those are the neighborhoods that thrive instead of segregating neighborhoods, because I have noticed as well, and I'm pretty sure you guys have noticed, that there is a tendency to marginalize the people who are low income in low income neighborhoods. And like say like Toronto, we have financial district, right? You don't really see a lot of housing there. So that's not a good example of a mixed community. A good example is like around the St. Lawrence market. So you'll have people of low and middle and upper income around that area. So my main concern is that for someone that has lived here for a long time, is that are you putting all of the low income, are you separating them to in other low income neighborhoods? Because that's what I'm starting to notice, which is very common within the city. And like if people say at Yonge and Eglinton protest, they seem to get their way, but if like where people who are immigrants, because this is our neighborhood, I'm proud of it, and we are a little bit mixed too. Like it is low and middle. We have more lower income. Those are just like my main concerns. Like for the people of 7 Glamorgan, like I don't want anything. I don't want them to be displaced, first of all, because I know you said people have a choice, but one of my coworkers, he just got into community housing. Took him 15 years, he told me. And he told me he didn't really have a choice because he just goes wherever you guys offer, basically. Because it's true. So it's a play of power. That's what I'm trying to say. Because they will go, these people are already vulnerable. If you offer them community housing, they're just gonna go to, of course, where is the most affordable areas, right? So I just want to know that we're not taking advantage of the vulnerable population and then taking advantage of the people who are already vulnerable within the community.
Right. Thank you, Anna. And I think Mayor Tory wanted to respond there first. So go ahead, Mayor.
Well, and if I could on just the first, and I think maybe your main point that you spent time on, which is the notion of sort of where these are located in the context of different neighborhoods across the city. As one who has been to in all of this current group of projects, which are helped by a federal program actually that helps us with a lot of the money to build these, especially these modular units, I can tell you right now that they are right across the city in neighborhoods of all different kinds of circumstances and income groups and demographics. So I've been to meetings of a project that's in the Beaches, one that is in the very center of the city at sort of Yonge and Davenport, another one that quite recently was launched in Etobicoke in Premier Ford constituency, another one that is on Finch, Yonge and Finch, in a sort of a residential neighborhood. Some are surrounded, like the one up in Etobicoke, by higher rise buildings. Others are surrounded by lower rise single family residences. And I can just tell you that it is right across the city, and it is in all different kinds of neighborhoods, and there's been no thought whatsoever. Quite frankly, it's been more about the right kind of site in terms of the requirements that exist for this kind of housing and the availability of land that we have and the suitability of it to fit in compatibly with the rest of the neighborhood. So I can just tell you that there will be people who will be able to have the opportunity to live in this supportive housing who will be living in neighborhoods right across the city of all different kinds. And I think that's great, by the way. I think that we all have a shared responsibility to have these new neighbors join us and to embrace them and so on. And but it's happening right across the city. I've been to them all, and I'm leaving some out that I've forgotten I've been at, but they're every kind of neighborhood you can imagine.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Can I just add, and thank you,
And,
Anna.
and
Can you hear me?
yeah, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Anna, thank you for the comments and the question. Clearly, as our community, we're very proud people, and yeah, there are resources that we are trying to get more of in the community. I've had these discussions with AXA, Lee Soda, and others, and so on. And I know that there are many people in the community that are interested in working, whether or not it's the principal at the local school and others, and assessing some of the concerns that residents have. As the local councillor, there is no way that I would support any position from the city or elsewhere where we'd simply be viewing our community as a place just to park people and not providing them with dignity, and that the community itself would not be able to work with each other in order to accommodate the intention, which is of the city, to place these modular homes in the community where people would be well received. And so it's extremely important that you understand that we want to work together, and it's extremely important to hear your comments. And for those who have concerns, I look forward to working with you as I do with the city staff in addressing the issues. Thank you.
Diana, if
Thank you.
I could just add, Anna, I want to assure you, nobody in the existing TCHC building will be moved out, forced to move. This is a new building. People who want to move there will apply to move to it, but no one will be moved out. In terms of your comment about Regent Park, I want to assure you that one of the things that the city does look at when we see redevelopments happening on many sites, such as Toronto community housing sites, is that tenants, while they may be displaced because of the redevelopment, there is the opportunity for them when the new buildings are built for the tenants to move back, because many of these sites have a mixture of housing types and housing affordability. And your point that you made about J&J is correct. We strive to provide a variety of housing types and prices to make a complete community. So thank you for those comments.
All right. Thanks very much, Anna. I appreciate your comments this evening. All right, so we're going to move into the next part of our session now, and I would like to introduce Kevin Hutchinson from Montgomery CSEM Architects, who's going to tell you a little bit more about modular housing.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is a site plan drawing. So I'm not sure how many of you have seen this before. So there is a blue dotted line that outlines the project boundaries, so the site area. And then there is the solid blue tone with a thick, heavy blue line around it. That is the building position. So what we are contemplating here is 57 units over 6 stories. I think, as was previously mentioned, there is quite a bit of a grade drop. So the site is high on Glamorgan, and it drops down almost 4 meters towards the south. We'll see in some renderings shortly how the building navigates that, but we're not looking at flattening the site in its entirety. We're looking at kind of burying the building partially into that embankment. So on the Glamorgan side, it will look more like 5 stories, and then on the south side, it will look like 6 stories. The 6 stories feels pretty appropriate to us in terms of a built form transition. So we've got 12-story buildings to the south and 2-story buildings to the north and to the west. So there's a kind of nice height transition as you go from those lower buildings up to the taller buildings. I think what you can also see is that the building occupies a little less than half of its frontage along Glamorgan, so it's not its entire frontage. There are a few things we are deliberately not disrupting. One would be the path that exists on the east side of the site right now, that shortcut that goes from Glamorgan down to the parking area, down to the bottom right, as well as the existing driveway that moves to the underground parking and to the rear parking lot of the TCHC building. Maybe we can go to the next slide. These are a couple renderings of the building, so maybe I'll speak to the one on the left first. So this is if you're standing on the north side of Glamorgan looking south, you're looking at the building face here, you see it looks like 5 stories here. At this point, we're suggesting the building be composed of light and dark gray siding. The siding is a kind of horizontal lap siding that's a bit residential in character. And then we are also proposing some cedar accents, notably at that kind of recess on the left-hand side and at some of the window elements. So we add some warmth to the elevation. You'll notice there's a kind of gazebo structure at the front with a series of bays. That's a little wood pergola that provides some protection as you move up a ramp and a set of stairs to get to the main entrance. The image on the right really shows you how the building is engaging with the slope on the site. So here you are standing on the east side of the site, looking towards the northwest. Glamorgan is up at that higher elevation, and there is a rear yard amenity space for the residents. So we are suggesting here it's mostly a flat scape here. Because of the grade, it isn't terribly visible from the street, so it's screened and secured by a fence. We can go to the next slide. Here's a small slide on modular housing. So the image on the right is of their phase 1 project at 11 Macy Avenue. Phase 1 tested the modular construction process for us at both Macy and Dovercourt sites. So phase 1 had 2 of those sites. The construction was very efficient and was very successful. The real critical piece here is that the modules are built off-site in a controlled environment. So we tend to find a very high quality of build because they're built in a controlled environment, not out in the sun and the rain. You're under a roof when you build these things, so the quality tends to be very good. One of the other significant advantages is it's quick to build, but that also means that there's less disruption in the community. So 8 to 10 months of active construction work instead of 18 to 24 months, which is a serious benefit for the community. Perhaps the next slide as well. One of the things we thought would be helpful is if you could visualize some of the units that we would be looking to provide. So these are units that are provided in phase 1, so at Macy Avenue and Dovercourt. So each unit is a studio unit. They are provided with a kitchenette, their own private washroom, and a modest sleeping and living area. They come furnished with a bed, tables and chairs, and a dresser, and the kitchen equipment is included as well. So they get their fridges and microwaves and all of that good stuff. So a fully equipped, modest studio unit is provided. I think that might be all that I have, Diana.
Great, thank you. And I think in the interest of time, we could ask Abby to present the next part of the presentation, and then we'll turn it back to the community for some additional discussion. Is that all right with you, Abby?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Diana. Yeah. Okay, so I just have a few slides here at the end, really for those people who might be interested in how you could help support the addition of this building to your community. So as we've already discussed, these kinds of homes that are delivered with support create really great opportunities for people to move into this building, but they're really an important feature of safe, inclusive communities across our city. Next slide, please. So we want to work with you and the Deputy Mayor to make sure that this is a successful building in your community. So we're looking to work with you at all stages of the project, both right now when we're in the design period, when we're getting feedback on the design and the site application, all the way through to when the building opens. So we're encouraging you as neighbours to share kind of interests and priorities for the site. We want to learn more about your community We're looking for feedback both on the building and the site design elements, such as, adjacent lighting or pathways or landscaping that you might be interested in seeing, as well as if you have any suggestions for how these homes could benefit both the new residents who might be moving in and the existing neighborhood. So we really want to hear from you during this process about how this building could be even more successful. Next slide. And so to build on that, so we're here tonight to hear from you in a kind of public engagement meeting. And I mentioned that we're also going to be meeting with the tenant leaders from TCHC, but also for some of the other buildings, we have set up a community liaison committee, which this is an opportunity for interested neighbours and project partners to meet on a regular basis, say once a month, once every couple of months, to share information, ask questions about the project, learn a bit more as it gets underway, to really build and maintain those positive relationships right from the start, address any concerns or issues that might arise as we roll into the opening of the building, and find ways to take suggestions from the community and find ways to support the success of the building through dialogue at this committee. So this is an opportunity for people who are interested to let us know that you're interested, and we'll get that set up, get it underway very shortly. Next slide. So as part of what makes a success, as I said at the beginning, it really takes a community to address homelessness. We're proposing to put these homes here with these supports to create an opportunity for people to come together and create these welcoming, safe and inclusive communities. And we really think that by working together, we can really help reduce the number of people who are experiencing homelessness and also really help save lives. So we'd love to work with you on this, see people join the community liaison committee and work with you to see this building be a success. Thank you. Oh, sorry. There's just this one more slide. It's just that this is a great example of one of our other supportive housing buildings elsewhere in the city. And it's really the use of, artwork integrated into the design of the building, which has created a really fantastic atmosphere of kind of healing, and also it's very playful as well. This is custom artwork that was installed both underneath the windows and also in some of the balcony areas, and a very welcoming space. So there's opportunities for us to not necessarily do exactly what we're showing here, but to think about this building, this unique building in this community, and see how we can really come together with ideas to make it really special.
That's great. Thank you so much, Abby. Wonderful. So now I'm going to turn it back to the community. And again, if you are wanting to make a new comment and you had your hand up from previous, and just raise it. So a question, and I'll just wait for anyone here to raise their hands. Tanisha. Great. Please go ahead, Tanisha.
Yes. I was thinking about the renderings and the image that was shown of the back. I think he said it was southwest. I do believe that some type of barrier between the parking, like where people go into the parking way, and the back of the building, as you say, it was kind of slope and then have that kind of design where it looks taller from the back, to give some type of barrier between that walkway where they would be walking basically in where oncoming cars go to park. And that would give a sense of differentiation between the buildings, because I think that people here would assume that that building is going to be a part of Toronto housing. And there should be some visual element, like to show people that this is something that is separate.
Yeah, so thank you for that comment. I think definitely the extents of the fence and how we deal with landscape buffer, I think, are going to be important for it. I think you're spot on that that area, especially being a green space, people will have been used to having cut across it in the past.
Right.
So that's a fair comment. I think we'll keep that in mind as we develop the landscape plans, but the fence and the planting buffers are the way to do that, I think.
Right.
Right.
Another
Another
concern I would have
is that
over time, I know it was geared towards women and racialized, I don't know the kind of language that was used, but the demographic that it would be dedicated to. I'm thinking long-term impact is when women tend to have families or partners or move out, and what is the protocol for how people transition into this space and what it will then become. Because if there's anything that happens in terms of safety, people in this building would probably want to call the Toronto Housing Security for that building. They may not understand that, that there is a difference, that it's a nonprofit organization that is running this. And how would that communication get out to the people in the neighborhood?
Sure. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So great question about how people will know. So we will do some work to make sure that the tenant leaders in TCHC buildings and also other people in the community are aware of how to contact the building directly should they ever need to do that. We'll make sure that the telephone number and the website is widely known. And I think having the community liaison committee, having regular meetings between key representatives in the community and the building will really assist that process so that people have both that direct line to the staff, but also an indirect line through other people in their community. So that's definitely a way that we can help address that. I do just want to make the point about, when people move in here, we identified a number of key groups that we're looking for. And people may fit a number of those groups, right? They may be a woman, they may be an Indigenous woman, they may also have experienced homelessness. So they're not meant to be exclusionary. They're just an idea of people that we often see overrepresented in our homeless population or who really struggle to find housing. So that's why we've identified those groups. But really our target population is really those people experiencing homelessness or who have recently experienced homelessness.
May I make another statement?
Sure, go ahead.
Through some research on the Toronto website, I found that it's 85% of homeless people in the city are men. So all of these modular buildings that are being built are still being promoted under the guise that Abby has stated that these are the people that we are looking to house. But there's a large population of men that we see everywhere. I mean, outside drinking alcohol and, really, I've come from a bachelor building myself. So I was in a building that was very much dominated by men, and I found it very unsafe. I've, been stalked, I've been harassed, and I'm thinking about the children that live around here and the growing kids, and if this would end up transitioning as women maybe move out, would it be a male-dominated building? And then having men who are under substance abuse and who are vulnerable as well in their own way, but impact the neighborhood, which is already vulnerable. And I'm wondering about that long-term impact in terms of like police, security, resources that would have to be necessary, that would have to come down the line. Is this more of like a quick fix to a larger systemic issue, which is like, addiction, mental health, and like you said, housing is really like that first foundation, because I was someone who struggled with that as well. And that allowed me to then go forward. But it took a lot of hard work personally and a lot of support from the community.
Thanks, Tanisha. Abby, did you respond to that, or Laurel, did you want to introduce yourself and provide a bit of a response there around the homelessness population?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Laurel Rain. I'm a director of policy with Shelter Support and Housing Administration. So my team works on a system called Coordinated Access, which helps to refer the tenants that will be housed here and connect people who are currently experiencing homelessness to these new homes. And so I just wanted to respond sort of to your question about with new vacancies, how that process will work. And we will, so as part of the process, we do an assessment of people's needs and work very closely with the provider that will be selected to ensure that the supports that are being offered in the building are a good match for the tenants who are being referred. And that will continue on an ongoing basis. I think it's a really great point that you raised around that can change in a building over time. And so we will continue to work with the provider to understand what sort of the balance in the building is and ensure that there's a really, good, healthy, balanced mix of needs and support levels within the building, and including the gender mix, because that's an important point that you've raised as well. Certainly there are a higher proportion of men in the shelter system, but there are also a lot of women experiencing homelessness, and so we will work with the provider to make sure that there's a good balance, and any new vacancy that does come up, do kind of a check-in at that point, like what's kind of the level of support need currently in the building, and what kind of tenant would be a good mix, a good fit right now, and then identify someone based on that common assessment to be referred into that unit.
Okay, that's very important. Thank you. That's very important to know.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks. Okay, let's go, Kathy. Welcome back, Kathy.
Hi. I guess my question is for Kevin. Kevin, I'm wondering if we learned from the Comer Avenue project, and because I have layout, did we learn about the waste management and community room?
Kevin, I think you might have a microphone on.
Yeah, that was me. Apologies. I think I heard that question sufficiently to answer it, though. Or do you want Kathy to repeat the question?
Perhaps, Kathy, could you just briefly repeat your question so that the whole call could hear? I wasn't able to hear your question.
Okay, so in the Comer Avenue project, we learned that we needed waste management within the building, and we needed a community space within the building. And I wanted to make sure that this count of 57 units is that beyond the spaces? We don't want to be losing spaces again because these things were not provided for. So I'm asking Kevin, have we taken those lessons and moved into this project?
Thank you for the question, Kathy. Yes, there are many things we are learning as we go along, and I think much of it with your help. So in this case, we do have internalized waste on this site. So we've been working on that in particular. This site is a little bit different than some of the others in that it's got the grade change. So we are taking advantage of a kind of semi-basement condition that we are looking at. So when we need to make that move, that we won't lose any additional units there. I think there are going to be revisions we make through subsequent site plan applications. So I think the Wheel-Trans drop-off is something we do still need to look at together.
This one's gonna. I think this one we're going to be able to get a lay-by off of Glamorgan rather than having to come off of the TCHC site. I think, hopefully, we'll try.
Yeah, I think we would expect to get a round of city comments from all commenting divisions and then look at all of those comments as a whole and make a resubmission where we address, and the project gets better on each of those resubmissions. So we would expect to address that in a resubmission, but I think we have a good idea of where the Wheel-Trans issue would go, and the waste issue certainly won't be a problem in terms of a unit count on this site.
Good. I just want to make sure we're learning and moving along with our lessons learned.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. All right, let's go to Saeed. Saeed, please go ahead. Hello, Saeed, can you hear us? Saeed Hashemi? No. All right. Can anybody else hear Saeed? And it's not just me. I have very bad connection. So I want to make sure we're not missing anybody. All right.
No, I
We'll try to
can't
come
hear
back.
Saeed.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll come back, Saeed. Sorry about that. And the next person is going by A.
Oh.
So the person who's got the name A, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Diana. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I guess this question might be more for Kevin, so just to warn Kevin. So there's two things I guess I mainly want to know, and I think it's from a construction perspective. The first one, I guess the smaller pieces, is it gonna like encroach on, or embroach, I don't know the word it is, on like existing like the traffic or the driveway? That's the one question, and like what's being done to mitigate like noise, dust, other construction concerns that typically come up. And the bigger question, I guess, is since the building comes up, it's going to be an obstruction for the view on Glamorgan. So is there going to be like, I'm just worried like if it's going to increase criminogenic factors, and if there's any way to mitigate, like the fencing, is there going to draw more graffiti? Is there going to be like increased lighting to, I guess, prevent loitering and people from hiding and using the obstruction as I don't know, say petty crime like theft, for example.
Okay, so I think I can answer both of those questions. Maybe there'll be some other input on this second part. So in terms of encroachments or encumbering on the TCHC lands, I think the driveway should remain unimpeded. Likely during construction itself, there would be some minor impact that we would expect. One of the things we have to submit with our site plan application is a construction management plan that identifies where construction vehicles will access, what areas may need to be blocked off, any parking that would need to be, for a short period obstructed. So we've submitted a draft of that, and I think that is definitely something that we will get comment on. There's no planned impact on the driveway. It's possible that we do bury a cistern under the driveway, but that is kind of still in the works a little bit, but that driveway will remain active. That was your first one. In terms of noise and dust and the like, construction is messy. Inevitably, it is a nuisance. Fortunately here, given its modular construction, it won't be a long nuisance, but it will be a nuisance. Unfortunately, it's true. There are city bylaws that we have to abide by in terms of construction hours, noise, and the types of machinery we can use. So we will abide by all the city bylaws. I don't know if somebody else wants to comment on the crime prevention aspects of the site plan.
Go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, maybe I'll just reference the fact that on one of the things that we've been doing in looking at how the building interacts with the surrounding area from a community safety perspective is we've often been doing a community safety walk around the site with local residents, with the deputy mayor and his staff, and other city staff who are familiar with the site. So we've been doing that on some of the other sites, and it's been very effective at highlighting key issues that are next to the building, dark spots in terms of lighting, landscaping that maybe presents community safety issues, things like that. So if there's an interest from the community to join that kind of walkabout, that is something we could definitely repeat on this site, and it's a great way to find out a bit more about concerns and have those addressed. We've come up with good kind of lists of follow-up actions on other sites, so where we've been really able to improve the community safety impacts of the building and the adjacent area.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Great. Thanks very much, A, for your comments. And I'm just going to go back to Saeed just to see if they are back. Saeed, are you with us? And would you like to ask a question or make a comment? I fear we've lost Saeed, unfortunately. All right. Go ahead, Tanisha.
I wanted to know, are these modular homes like forever homes, or are these also transitional homes? Because they are pretty small, and I know that the people that would be living there, I'm not sure how long they would be willing to live there in such a small contained place, depending on, you know, their age or who they are, you know, gender and all these different factors. But is it something that could be torn down, say in 20 years? I mean, the cost of living just keeps getting higher in the city. And it seems like this is just going to be a bigger problem. And we're going to have more modular homes, I mean, springing up everywhere because we're not really dealing with the actual systematic issues that are at the foundation of what's happening in the society.
Abby, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, we do definitely need to see more affordable housing across the city and more supportive housing for sure. We've definitely over the last couple of decades probably not seen as much rental housing built in our city as perhaps we need. And so, you know, the urgent issue around homelessness is making us make strong efforts to kind of catch up. And so that's why we're looking to use modular, which is a much faster type of construction to really get ahead of some of that the need that's out there for this type of housing. In terms of the modular housing itself, though, although it is quick, it is high quality. And so these buildings will stand the test of time. We'll be able to, these are permanent buildings, these are permanent homes for people, and they're built to meeting all of the kind of required building code, etc. So we're not anticipating coming back in 20 years and having to demolish the building due to quality issues. So these are for the long term, and they really provide a good option for us to create permanent housing, but much faster than we would otherwise be able to construct housing.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tanisha. And I see that Saeed is back, so let's try again. Hi there, Saeed. Can you hear me?
Hi. Hi, can you hear me okay on this one?
Yes, now we can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about my audio issues last time. I actually wanted to just give a few comments, actually building on the previous commenter. So this is a great project. I think it's really awesome that you're doing this. So I guess my question from the city, a few questions. One is, what's the plan to expand this and accelerate this kind of development and build more of these in the future? And also, what is the plan to address the ever-increasing crisis of market rate housing, and how are you going to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place? So we know increased market rate supply has been proven to reduce rents. Over 70% of Toronto is zoned for single-family detached. You know, the supply of housing in Toronto, CMA, has been stagnant for 10 years. The square footage has been lower and lower every year. We've seen, you know, our politicians on television just telling us that Canada housing is, you know, better suited for foreign investors than people who live and work here. These are growing issues, and more people are frustrated about this, and it's causing more and more people to become homeless in the first place. So what is the city going to do to meet these targets? What is the city going to do to address intensification targets and fix zoning, increase supply, and actually fix the market rate housing problem, which is supposed to address housing needs for the majority of people who work in Toronto? We should not be seeing programs for people making up to $150,000 a year in salary from the federal government just to be able to afford housing. So this is clearly a market failure. And I think addressing this is just as important as expanding and accelerating these kinds of projects, which I think should happen too. Thanks.
Thank you, Saeed.
Maybe I'll say a few things.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that we may not be able to tackle the whole global issue of the housing market here, but I'm sure that folks would like to comment on that, and then we could probably follow up with that on a broader discussion. Abby, please go ahead, and then Carrie.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of points. I'm sure Kerry will want to make a few too. You know, and you're right. This is an issue that people have written their, you know, thesis on about what to do about housing affordability in Toronto right now. Our housing plan does have a really comprehensive set of actions, and we're really looking at multiple ways to increase supply. So yes, we have these this program, which we're partnering with the federal government on, but we also have our Housing Now sites, which are transit-oriented tailored sites across the city, building for a broader range of incomes and a broader a type of housing. And then we also have exploring innovative policy as well. So right now, the City of Toronto is considering a vacant homes tax, for example, which would look at making sure that housing that is built is actually lived in and well utilized for people who live here, as well as things like short-term rental kind of action as well. So those are some of the things, but I'm sure Carrie wants to make a couple of points about zoning and density, etc.
Thanks, Abby. Saeed, great question. I'm glad you asked it. The city's doing a number of initiatives, as Abby said. I'll just add a few and happy to talk about them further. We have a program called Expanding Housing Options in Neighborhoods, and that is a policy approach that we're advancing. Council has directed us to continue to advance it. It'll be a series of reports over a period of time where we're looking at providing, one is garden suites within neighborhoods. We're also looking at multiplex homes. So you may have a single family home, but it'll look like a single family, but it actually has 4 units in it. So there's a variety of zoning tools that we're doing. On top of it, later in June, we're hoping to be in a position where council will consider inclusionary zoning, which is a recent policy tool that the government has enacted that will allow us to require a percentage of affordable housing in new developments in specific areas of the city, not across the city, but in areas near transit. So those are just a few of the policy initiatives currently underway. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So I think we'll maybe pause there. We are just at the very end of our meeting, and I do appreciate the question. Thank you, Saeed, for your comments and for everybody's comments here this evening. So before we close, I would like to invite Deputy Mayor Thompson to provide any final closing remarks, and then we'll finish with the mayor's closing remarks and send everybody on their way.
And Diane, I'm just going to turn my video off just in case, okay? So thank you very much, and I want to thank all the residents for their inputs. It's really important to hear from you, because what we hear from you will be obviously responded to by the staff. I just wanted to say to Saeed, we are actually really focused on addressing the issue about housing in the community. We have a number of sites actually that are being considered for development. One is 158 Borough Drive, the other, which is at the Scarborough, just up by the Scarborough Civic Center Library. The other is 2444 Eglinton Avenue. We also have Borough Drive, which is 25 Borough Drive, which is a purpose-built rental. We have another development at Brimley Progress, and we also have 1001 Ellesmere, which is basically Kennedy and Ellesmere. Plus we have the Golden Mile. There's a whole series of affordable housing that's coming as part of that process. So Scarborough is actually going to be well served, and we are working through that. I think it's really important that we understand, as staff has indicated, it's not only our community that's being asked to actually contribute to help. It's right across the board, as the mayor has indicated. All neighborhoods are being asked to help. Abby has indicated that as well. Clearly, we know there are people in our community that are homeless, and we need to address the issue. All the issues have been raised here this evening by everyone about security and concerns about safety and this, how the site will be developed and so on. We certainly will be going back with staff, and we'll be coming back again. I believe the next meeting is on June 17th to provide you with updates and addressing the issues around, as Kathy has raised, about wheel-trans and accessibility, lay-by. I don't know whether or not a lay-by is going to be possible on Glamorgan, but nonetheless, obviously, we have to take into consideration all of these issues. I'm very encouraged by what I've heard tonight from the residents, and I know that the staff, the mayor, myself, and the community will work together to ensure that we address this issue. I want to be able to ensure that the Dominicas of the community are addressed, that we don't fail them, that they understand that we are prepared to help them. And as a community, I think that we have an obligation and a responsibility. We have to do it properly, and I think this is part of this discussion. So I want to thank the staff. I want to thank Diane for hosting us. I want to definitely thank the mayor for his leadership on addressing this issue. As he pointed out earlier, before he became the mayor, this wasn't the approach that we took. It was more sort of an attitude of waiting for the next opportunity. What we're doing here is we're addressing this issue, and I know residents want us to address this issue, and we have to do it in a holistic way, in a way that represents the community's interests and address their concerns. And this is what we're doing tonight. So thanks very much for the opportunity to hear from you this evening. Turn it back to you, Diane.
Great. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Thompson. And finally, I'll turn it over to Mayor Tory for final closing thoughts. And please go ahead, Mayor.
Well, first of all, Diana, thank you for another job well done chairing another of these meetings. And I learned something at every one. Tonight was a very thoughtful meeting. Diana, you've been at a number, and some of the staff, of course, and I want to thank our staff as well for the fact that they were here to make a presentation and to answer questions. But this was very thoughtful, and the comments were thoughtful, and they ranged, as Michael was just saying, between accessibility and the design of the building and kind of amenity space in the buildings, and many different things. And that's why we have the meetings, because we can take note of these things, and we can't solve every single one, but we can certainly look at them all, and I'm sure we'll be able to address a number of them. But in the end, what this is really all about is a better way to help our fellow residents who are having some housing issues in their lives, and sometimes that's caused by other issues that we've heard discussed tonight. And so to do it in a way where they're fully supported in a home, a real home. I just think that accords to the people that are our fellow Toronto residents the kind of dignity that we would all want accorded to us if we fell into difficult times. And I think it is just the Toronto way of doing things. People have said to me before in the course of some debates about all of this, well, you have a choice. You can either sort of leave the neighborhoods as they are, and people value their neighborhoods as you value Glamorgan and the surrounding neighborhood, and other people do across the city, or you can solve the homelessness problem. I said, no, there is no choice here. The challenge in front of us is to do both, which we can. We've proven that before. We have 15,000 units of supportive housing, I think is the number across the city. And many of them have integrated themselves into the heart of the neighborhood, and the neighbors have embraced them in a way that would make you proud. And that provides even more support. Imagine it's not just about somebody that's a professional being in your building, being able to give you some support, but imagine how well you will feel if you've been like Dominica and you suddenly have some people living down the street or across the street that are embracing you and kind of giving you that kind of a hug in different ways from time to time. So I'm just proud of the response tonight. I thank Deputy Mayor Thompson because he has been proactive on this and positive about this right from the beginning. And it shows, and we will work with him. And he, I can tell you, is on all over me every week about different things that are going on in the constituency, including this, and making sure we get this right. And I'll be working with him. I'll be back for the future public meetings. And I thank you so much for your constructive participation tonight, and for something that I think is going to be a real badge of honor and a source of pride for our city once we get it constructed and have people with new homes. Thanks very much, Diana.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you again, as everyone has said, for spending the time with us this evening and for the thoughtful conversation and discussion. I think you've given city staff and mayor and councillor a lot to think about, and they'll be taking that forward as we go ahead. If there are things that you think about when the meeting ends, which is sometimes the case, please do feel free to reach out to either the community liaison or to Deputy Mayor Thompson's office. So contact information on the screen for you now. You can also see the draft plans for the site at toronto.ca/7 Glamorgan. So thank you very much, everyone, and we look forward to connecting with you again in the future to provide an update on the site and discuss the future plans. Thank you. Good night.